Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this Dental Board of California meeting. I am Dr. Alan Felsenfeld and serve as the president of the board. Today is Thursday, February 9th, 2023. This board meeting is being held via teleconference with the disclosed in-person location available for board and public member participation. For all those who wish to participate online, please log on to the WebEx website provided on the posted agenda for this meeting. Instructions to connect to the meeting are provided on the agenda. The preferred audio connection is via telephone conference and not the microphone and speakers on your computer. The phone number and access code will be provided as part of your connection to the meeting. During each call for comments from board members and speakers, we will ensure that all comments that can be accommodated are heard before proceeding with the agenda. This is an official business meeting of the Dental Board of California. The board welcomes public comments on any item on the agenda, and it is the board's intent to ask for public comments prior to the board taking action on any agenda item. The DCA moderator in a moment will explain the process for providing public comment. For individuals participating via WebEx, when called upon, the moderator will give the individual permission to unmute themselves, and they will have 2 minutes to make public comment. The moderator will audibly announce when 30 seconds remain to conclude the public comment. After the 2 minutes have lapsed, the individual will be placed back on mute. There is only one public comment per agenda item per attendee. Depending on the number of people who would like to testify on a particular agenda item, a total time limit may be imposed. We ask all speakers to please stay on topic and not repeat testimony already provided. If you agree with the testimony already provided, please just state your name and affiliation if you wish, and that you are in support of any comments previously provided. I would like to ask the DCA moderator to please explain how public comments will be taken during the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. This is the moderator of the meeting. For purposes of today's meeting, when the Board President opens public comment, members of the public who would like to provide public comment at our DCA location in Sacramento can approach the table and microphone at the front of the room. For those joining via WebEx, we will be utilizing the WebEx question and answer feature, also referred to as the Q&A panel, to facilitate public comment. When the board reaches a point in the agenda at which public comment is appropriate, the question and answer feature will be turned on, and members of the public can indicate they would like to make a comment by inserting the phrase, "I would like to make a comment," in the question box, which is typically in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. The moderator will then call on the individual and give the individual permission to unmute their microphone. The individual will have 2 minutes to make their comments. At the conclusion of the 2 minutes, the individual's microphone will be muted, and we will move on to the next member of the public who has a comment. Please note that the question and answer feature is being used only as a means for the members of the public to represent that they would like to make a verbal comment. This is not a means to ask questions of the moderator or board members. Questions submitted using this feature will not be answered. When making your comment, please make sure the comment is directed at the host in the dropdown. While you are free to express criticisms or views for the sake of the members of the public participating on the call, please do not use profane language when making public comments. I will provide a brief reminder of this approach at the start of each public comment item. And with that, I return the floor back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I would like to call the meeting to order and ask the board secretary to please call the roll.
Good morning. This is Dr. Leah Lareen. I'm board secretary, and I will now call the roll. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Present. Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, present.
Felsenfeld, present. Forge?
Forge, present.
Forge, present. Lareen, present. McKenzie?
Present.
McKenzie, present. Medina?
Medina, present.
Medina, present. Molina?
Molina, present.
Molina, present. Olagi?
Olagi, present.
Olagi, present. Pacheco?
Pacheco, present.
Pacheco, present. Thakur?
Thakur, present.
Thakur, present. And you?
You present.
You present. Mr. President, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Dr. Lareen. I understand you have an announcement you'd like to make.
I have a great announcement.
Please do.
Today is the International Day of the Dentist. So all the dentists worldwide are being applauded, and it's always thank you for the great work you do and how you serve our communities, and to our licensees, we greatly appreciate all your efforts.
Being a dentist is a wonderful thing. It really is. All right, thank you very much. Agenda item number 2, public comment on items not on the agenda. Before we open public comment on matters not on the agenda, I would like to remind individuals making comments to not discuss pending complaints, pending license applications, or pending disciplinary actions that may later come before the board for a decision. Such discussions are considered ex parte communications in violation of the Administrative Procedure Act, as they may provide information to the dental board members that is outside of the record. Such discussions could create a conflict and lead to a board decision being challenged in Superior Court. Accordingly, if an individual makes any comments on a pending disciplinary matter, the individual will be interrupted. The board can, of course, receive comments regarding the board's processes in general, but it cannot receive comments on specific case circumstances where the decision is still pending. In addition, public comments should address the board as a whole and not individual members. Please be aware that public comment during this agenda should provide information to board members, but it is not a discussion between the board members and the public. The only action board members can take right now is to listen to the comments and decide whether they want a future agenda item on this topic. Though this may seem at times like the board members are not being responsive, following these guidelines is critical to ensure the rules of the Open Meeting Act are followed to avoid compromising the speaker's goals or the board's mission. In the interest of time, as we've done in the past, we would like to request that the public comments not repeat statements made by a prior commenter. If you are in support of a statement made by a prior individual and your comments have already been made, just state your name and or association and your support for the previous commenter. Legislative hearings use this practice as a good way to ensure that we are hearing from everyone today. Are there any in-person public comments at this point? Please come to the microphone, identify yourself, and let us know what you'd like, sir. Please do. Push the button to make it turn green, and you'll be able to speak.
Thank you. Members of the board, my name is Francisco Leal. I come to you today as an advocate of your foreign dental school program, a program by which you have approved 2 schools, La Salle and Moldova. I also come to you as a parent of a child who is graduating from Moldova next year, and she'll be an exceptional dentist, I assure you. At the last Sunset Review session, this board made a decision that it would no longer approve foreign dental schools and instead sponsored legislation that transferred that responsibility to COTA. It also set a deadline of January 1st, 2024 for the accreditation of Moldova. In our research, we've developed that we know that it takes 10 to 12 years to get COTA approval, so the January 1st, 2024 deadline is simply impossible to meet. So I come here before you today requesting that you reassess this decision, its implications and repercussions, because if you leave things as they are, you will not have a Moldova, you will not have a La Salle, and you will not have a foreign dental school program, a program that you passed and approved with the intent of ensuring that you provide an additional resource for dentists to serve underserved communities. It's been very successful. We track students from La Salle in particular. They're working at Altamed, community centers, or communities. My own doctor, Dr. Sanchez, is working in the city of Cudahy, a very poor city in southeast LA. And my own daughter will be practicing in Pico Union, thanks to the efforts of her mom, full disclosure, my ex-wife, Dr. Sonia Molina. And so I come here to implore upon you to take a second look at this issue. It's a very important program. It deserves a second look, and it deserves to be continued. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other in-person comments? Seeing none, are there public comments from individuals participating via WebEx? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and send it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Thank you, yes.
Okay.
We now move on to item number 3, discussion and possible action on November 17th, 18th, 2002 board minutes. You've all read the minutes. You have them before you. Is there any board member discussion? Dr. Loreen?
I just found a small typo in page 18 of the meeting minutes on the first paragraph, first line, raised, the word raised is twice there. You might want to just correct that.
We'll do that editorial. It was repeated, the word was repeated, is what you're saying, right? That will be taken care of editorially. Thank you. Are there any other board member comments on the minutes? Seeing none, let's have a motion. We need a motion to accept and a secondary. Dr. Chan, I see your hand went up, even though you're on the other side today. All right, and Dr. Chan?
I'll move the motion to accept the minutes of November 17, 18.
Thank you. And Dr. Yu? You was going to second that. All right. Are there any in-person public comments? I'm sorry.
Just, for the record, you're moving the meeting minutes as revised today.
As revised, correct.
Editorial. Okay, yes, okay. That's fine. Yes, as revised, taking out that one word. Very good. That being said, is there any in-person public comment on the minutes as revised? Seeing none, are there public comments from individuals participating via WebEx? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for comment.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Thank you.
Okay.
Board Secretary, will you please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item? Sorry.
Yes, the motion is to approve the November 17, 18, 2022 board meeting minutes as revised. Okay, Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Forge?
Forge, aye.
Forge, aye. Loreen, aye. McKenzie?
Yes.
McKenzie, yes. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Molina?
Molina, aye.
Molina, aye. Olage?
Olagi, aye.
Olage, aye. Pacheco?
Checo, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Thakur? Thakur, aye. And you?
You, aye.
You, aye. The motion passes, Mr. President.
Thank you. We will now move on to board agenda item number 4, the board president report. I have none. We will now move on to item 5. Didn't do anything. All right, agenda item 5, the executive officer report. Dr. Montez, please present this item.
Good afternoon. Several items. Some of this will be a repeat for those that were here earlier for our council meeting. But again, I would like to recognize Dr. Felsenfeld and Dr. Thakur. Sorry, I was mispronouncing your name earlier. They were reappointed to the board, so congratulations. We would also like to introduce some dental board staff this afternoon. Specifically, the Complaint and Compliance Unit will be introduced today. We'd like to, again, do this at our Sacramento meetings. So if I could have Mr. Owen Dudley, the chief, to introduce his staff and just a few words about what this unit does.
Come forward, sir, please, on the microphones.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm Owen Dudley, Chief of Regulatory Compliance and Discipline for the Dental Board, and behind me are the members of the Complaint and Compliance Unit. This unit processes about 4,000 complaints each year for the board. The intake team receives complaints and complaint-related communication through paper mail, email, phone calls, and our online complaint portal. And the analyst team determines if complaints are within the board's jurisdiction using the Dental Practice Act, and they coordinate the review of complaints by our expert consultants. I'm going to have the staff introduce themselves and let you know which team they're a part of and how long they've been with the board. Thank you.
If you'll call their names so they can stand up and tell us who they are. You can do that from the back if you'll do that very loudly so we can hear you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. 7.5 months? Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you again. Good. We have more? We done? Mr. Dudley?
We're done, go ahead.
Those are all the members here today. There are
Okay,
two more
there's
intake
more
team
working, I'm
members.
sure.
Yes, Arturo Jimenez and Cruz Calderon aren't present today.
Thank you very much. The job that you do is most important in what we do, so thank you for doing it as well as you have. So, very good. Thank you, Mr. Dudley.
Okay, moving on again with personnel, I would like to introduce Christy Bell, our Assistant Executive Officer. She's sitting over there in the back. She comes from the Arbitration Certification Program, and I've worked with Christy for quite some time. She also has enforcement experience from the Vet Med Board, so very excited to have her part of the team. I would also like to note that, again, we have 12 vacancies. However, all 12 are in various stages of the selection process, including 2 sworn investigators that are in background. So we have no positions sitting open stagnant. We are hiring. Next, let's see, August will be our next Sacramento board meeting because May we will be in Anaheim. So at that time, we will feature the enforcement unit. You've met some of these sworn investigators. They come and do our security. But we're also going to have, in addition to our sworn officers, our special investigators, and we have one here today, Matt Pendergast. If you could just stand up, raise your hand. He wanted to join the team to come over here, so I wanted to recognize him. And their team will be giving you a little bit of information again about what they do. Complaints come in to CCU, and then they go mostly to enforcement for investigation. So to be continued. All righty, so moving on, as I had mentioned earlier, with statistics, both with licensing applications, DDS, and our dental assisting, we are processing applications that have come in the end of January, so we are within a month of processing applications. We are gearing up for graduation and have strategies in place to deal with the increase in applications anticipated. We have also approved an education program, 5 courses. We had our on-site evaluators here. And again, considering the conversations that we had earlier in the council meeting, we will be looking at regulations and statutes in order to streamline and clarify that process. We also have begun audits, continuing ed audits. We have a new DCA logo, which I'm sure DCA will be discussing later. And then finally, our newsletter that I had indicated, we are fast-tracking a version to be distributed, fingers crossed, May 2023. It'll be a briefer version, but we're looking forward to that. I had also mentioned that we have a new staff person, Victor Lebed, if you would stand up. Victor comes to us from OPS. Again, many of you are familiar with that. Yes, I am continuing to recruit from my other units in DCA. Victor has exceptional editing skills, but I promise not to take advantage of that because he is in Jessica's unit, the anesthesia unit. He will be helping with regulations and so forth, but he has graciously accepted to be the coordinator of the newsletter. And again, we do have a number of staff that will be contributing to that newsletter process. Thank you, Victor. And again, thank you, staff and board members, for supporting our mission. We're having a great time. We had a Super Bowl party, although most of us, our teams aren't going to be there Sunday, but hey, it's always a good reason to have a party. So we're trying to keep the enthusiasm, excitement, and celebrate our victories and our accomplishments. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Montez. Is there any board member comment on her report? Seeing none, is there any in-person public comment? Seeing none, DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the lines for public comment for those participating via WebEx?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on Agenda Item 5, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
We're now going to move on to agenda item number 6, which is an update on board member committee assignments for 2023. I'm going to ask Dr. Montez to start this off by explaining what we're doing, and then I'll give it a little more substance.
So the board president has the discretion to establish committees to facilitate the work of the board. And again, we often look at 2-member committees so that we can be more efficient in the board's use of time to be able to research projects and assignments behind the scene and then bring those findings, to the board for consideration. So our committees haven't been very active, in the past, partially due to COVID and various things, but we have determined Dr. Felsenfeld wanted to go ahead and make those committee assignments so that we can be prepared to tackle any issues that come up. We anticipate some of these may be more active than others, but we are very happy and pleased that our board members have agreed to participate in the committees. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Felsenfeld to announce those committees.
Thank you very much. We have put together, it looks like 7 committees that will, in the interim, do our 2-person types of meetings where we don't have to announce it to the public, as we talked about. Access to Care Committee, Dr. Lorena is going to chair that, and Dr. Thakur is going to assist her. Anesthesia Committee will be myself chairing with Dr. Chan. Enforcement Committee will be Ms. Pacheco, and she's the liaison to our Enlightened Enforcement Project, so she'll be doing that alone, along with other things that she has been doing well for us. Licensing, Examination, Certification, and Permits Committee will be Dr. Yu, who will chair it, and Dr. Forge. The Legislative and Regulatory Committee, Ms. McKenzie, will be chairing that with Dr. Molina assisting her. Substance Use Awareness Committee, Ms. Loggy will chair that, and Ms. Medina will help her. And Sunset Review Committee, Report Committee will be Ms. Pacheco chairing that with Dr. Chan doing some of the lifting as well. So we thank you all for your service in advance. I'm not sure that all of you will be used a lot this year, but I want to know that we have them in place should the need arise to allow us to facilitate our business so that the next board we may be able to spare a little time doing things that we could do ahead of time. So thank you again for willingness to serve, even though I just told you you're going to do it. All right. Is there any board member discussion on that? Medina, were you raising your hands or telling me you didn't want to do anything? Or we're good. Okay. Seeing none, is there any public comment? Public comment. Seeing none, are there public comments from individuals who are participating via WebEx? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Thank you. Please do.
Okay.
We move on to agenda item number 7, the report on the Department of Consumer Affairs activities, which may include updates on the department's administrative services, human resources, enforcement information technology, communications and outreach, as well as legislative, regulatory, and policy matters. I'm going to introduce Ms. Judy Bucciarelli. Did I get that right? There you go. DCA Board and Bureau Relations representative to provide this report. Ms. Bucciarelli, go ahead.
All right. Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, speak close to the mic.
A little
or loud
closer.
voice, either way.
Okay. Last time I blasted them out of the room, so I just want to make sure I have it right. We okay?
Yes, ma'am, you're fine.
Perfect. Well, good afternoon, and thank you for allowing me an opportunity to provide the Department of Consumer Affairs update today. To begin with, I'd like to share information on the new strategic plan and logo. DCA released its new 5-year strategic plan in November and officially transitioned to a new logo at the start of the new year. The new logo will be implemented gradually through this year. Existing items with previous DCA logos are still valid during the transition and do not need to be replaced or updated. DCA, board, and bureau leadership have been given information and resources to help with the new logo's implementation. A centralized website is also available at www.dca.ca.gov/logo. The new plan and logo represent the department's next chapter and future, with consumer protection continuing to guide our mission and priorities. DCA holds itself to a high standard as a licensing entity, regulator, educator, and service provider. Additionally, the plan incorporates our strong commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as our shared commitment to each consumer. The new logo not only displays California's official colors, but it also visually represents DCA's vision, together protecting California consumers. The shield symbolizes DCA's strong and long-standing protection mandate. The state symbolizes all 40 million Californians DCA has pledged and is honored to serve. The star symbolizes consumer protection as DCA's true guiding principle, its own North Star. For questions about the department's new strategic plan or logo, please contact Melissa Gear, Deputy Director of Board and Bureau Relations. Next, I'd like to share information about the DCA Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee. At the end of last year, the department established its first Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee, which I'll reference as the DEI Committee, to guide the department's equity strategy, initiatives, and action plans. Comprised of DCA board and bureau leadership, the DEI Committee held its second meeting on January 27th and established the committee's charter, discussed changes to the strategic planning process, and development of a DEI fact sheet. Additional resources will be forthcoming that the boards will be able to use and incorporate into their strategic plans and communications. The committee will concentrate on 3 key areas: workforce, find and keep diverse talent; workplace, actively educate leaders and employees to raise awareness and foster an inclusive culture; and marketplace, be sensitive to diverse backgrounds and perspectives of consumers, applicants, and licensees. Equally important, the department's DEI Steering Committee is working to implement the governor's executive order issued in September of last year, which directs state departments to embed diversity, equity, and inclusion into their strategic plans. DCA's solid team is working with the DEI Steering Committee to develop DEI-related questions for inclusion in environmental, scan surveys, and SWOT analyses to help guide the boards and bureaus in developing DEI-related goals and objectives as part of their strategic plans. Sample DEI objectives will also be provided to further assist the boards and bureaus. Additionally, DCA is developing video messages from leaders to explain their perspective on DEI and how it relates to the board's roles and regulators and policymakers. Once these new DEI components have been finalized and approved, SOLID will begin working with the DCA's boards and bureaus on the development of new strategic plans or updating of existing strategic plans. We will keep your executive officer updated as more information becomes available. Moving on, I'd like to provide a reminder about board member trainings. Now is a great time to review all the necessary board member trainings and submit certificates of completion to your executive officer and DCA at memberrelations@dca.gov. There are let me correct myself there. I want to make sure I have that right. memberrelations@dca.ca.gov. There are 2 DCA-wide mandatory trainings for 2023. This includes sexual harassment prevention training and information security awareness. All DCA employees and appointees, including board members, will need to complete the sexual harassment prevention training this year. This training is required every odd-numbered year and is approximately 2 hours. In addition, if you are assigned a DCA email, your name, dca.ca.gov, you are required to complete the Information Security Awareness Fundamentals 2023 training. Information Security Awareness training addresses everyone's role in protecting DCA data and information. The training is online and required every year. Both the Sexual Harassment Prevention Training and Information Security Awareness trainings are available in the department's Learning Management System, which we commonly refer to as LMS. Both trainings can be assessed online at any time. In the next few weeks, information will be sent out via email on how to access these trainings. Board members must complete Board Member Orientation Training, or BMOT, within the first year of appointment or reappointment, ethics training within 6 months of appointment and every 2 years thereafter, and defensive driver training within the first year and every 4 years. For your convenience, these trainings are offered multiple times a year in a variety of formats. For more information, a mandatory trainings page has been created to help members identify, access, and track specified trainings. The page includes direct links to the mandatory trainings as well as pertinent information and policies specific to these training courses. The page is available via the DCA Board Member Resource Center page under Required Board Member Training. You can also reach out to Melissa Gear or Yvonne Durantes. Looking ahead, DCA invites presidents and vice presidents to join President's Day training on February 22nd from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. This virtual 2-hour training will outline the role of a board president, including understanding the scope of the role, managing board members, and performing administrative duties. Please sign up now using LMS. Next, I'd like to share information on the following. The COVID-19 state of emergency and associated executive orders N-39-20 and N-75-20 will end on February 28th. Upon the state of emergency ending, the remaining active waivers that DCA issued under the authority of the state of emergency and executive orders will also expire. Next, board and committee members are required to file a Statement of Economic Interest, Form 700, within 30 days of their appointment, annually and within 30 days of leaving office. This year's annual filing period covers the prior calendar year, January 1 through December 31st, 2022. The official deadline for filing is Friday, April 1st, 2023. To ensure compliance, DCA requests Form 700 filers complete the e-filing by Friday, March 15, 2023. You should have recently received an email from NetFile with instructions on how to file your annual Form 700. If you have any questions or would like more information, please contact Melissa Gear at melissa.gear, and that's GEAR, at dca.ca.gov. As previously mentioned earlier in the update, board members must complete BMOT within 1 year of their appointment or reappointment. On March 22nd, 2023, BMOT will be offered as a live virtual day of training and possibly in person on June 20th, 2023 and October 10th, 2023. More information will be available soon. Members can sign up for this training using LMS. DCA and the BBR team look forward to working with you, and throughout this new year, we are here to support you and the important work that you do. Please reach out anytime. Thank you again for this opportunity, and I welcome any questions from the board at this time.
Is there any board member discussion or questions, Ms. Bucciarelli? I see none, ma'am. Thank you. We're going to ask for in-person public comments. Any public comments from people who are in person? I see none there as well. Are there public comments from individuals participating via WebEx? Will the DCA moderator please facilitate the lines for public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions, and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Please do, and thank you, Ms. Bucciarelli. We'll move on to agenda item number 8, which is the budget report. Mr. Rumbaugh, I saw you earlier. Are you here? Here he comes. Good morning, sir. Good afternoon, I should say. And we have an amended report that came in as a separate attachment for those of you who have the computer file.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Wilbur Rumbaugh, and I'm the admin manager with the Dental Board. I will be presenting the budget report, which can be referenced on the agenda item 8. Hopefully, everyone received a copy. Keep in mind, this budget report provides substantial information regarding the board's budget, both revenue and expenditures, and the projected fund balance moving forward. I would like to highlight some of the information and provide a little more clarity on them. There's also a budget memo prepared and included that will have this information and highlighted on the attachments. If we can go to attachment 2.
This is the moderator. I'm just going through the meeting materials that were provided. So
Moderator, it's not in the board packet. It was added. So it should be in a separate attachment.
Okay, we don't have that. Was that added to the website today, or?
It is on the website.
Okay, I can get it and load it real quick.
Okay. For those of you with the materials in front of you, as a refresher, I'm going to go into some detail on the budget documents for clarity. So agenda item 8, attachment 1 of the document is the board's fund condition statement. This document is read top to bottom and then left to right. The fund condition has been updated with 21-22 prior actual revenues and expenditures. The board began prior year 21-22 with an adjusted beginning balance of $12.4 million. As of fiscal month 12, the board collected approximately $18.5 million in revenue and expended approximately $15.5 million in direct expenditures. There were additional statewide expenditures of $1.4 million for a total of $16.9 million. Expenditure projections, as with revenue projections, may change with actual returns in the remaining fiscal months. The board ended 21-22 with just over $13.5 million, or approximately $2.9 million reversion in the reserves. That now moves to the top of the next column of the fund condition and becomes the beginning balance of the next fiscal year. You will also see that there was 8 months in reserve. Months in reserve is the amount of time the board can continue normal operations without any incoming revenues. A healthy program is considered to have at least 6 to 12 months in reserve. One of the items I wanted to update the board on is, at the previous meeting, I reported that there was a $5 million loan repayment scheduled for 23-24. This has been moved to fiscal year 24-25, and the estimated percentage of revenue that we will get from that is approximately $39,000, which is 0.05%. So if we move on to attachment 2. So as of January 10th, the board received the legislative annual budget appropriation upon the release of the governor's budget. The board is statutorily required to remain an appropriation spending limit and the fund's ongoing solvency. So for the governor's budget in 23-24, the estimated amount of revenue is $18.8 million, and the estimated expenditures are $19.7 million. Currently, as of fiscal month 5, the board has expended I lost my place. As of fiscal month 5, the board is projected to expend $18 million, and we're projected to revert $1.1 million by the end of the fiscal year. This is quite different from the previous year, which we reverted $2.9 million, but that was because we are officially hiring more people and getting more staff. Does anyone have any questions at this time?
Thank you, Mr. Mba. Is there any board member discussion or questions on the budget? Dr. Montez.
I would like to add, as it was pointed out, that we are hiring staff. So again, that is going to carve into our reserves or what we revert back. Also, we are purchasing equipment. We have things like firearms. We have vehicles. We have laptops. We have various things that need to be updated, and we are aggressively pursuing those so that, again, we can make sure that we are following all of our requirements. And I am being kept apprised of the budget, so I want you to feel very comfortable that although you may see us spending more money, it's because we are doing what we're supposed to be doing in supplying and getting things updated and upgraded as we are required to.
Okay, thank you. Any?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am, Dr. Molina.
Yes, so then.
Microphone on, please, and
it
close
is.
to it. Okay.
So since we have an overall expenditure of, let's say, $1 million, how is that going to reflect our reserves? Since are you projecting that this million is only because of equipment that you're buying for this year? What about for next year? How is that going to reflect on our reserves?
So the reserve, even with the additional expenditures for this upcoming year, the board is projected to still have 7.9 months in reserves. So at the beginning of July 1st, 2023, the Budget Act will be released, and the board will have a new appropriation for the next year. So as long as we're sticking within the appropriation within each fiscal year, the board is on track to do good.
Thank you. Any other board member discussion? Seeing none, is there any in-person public discussion? Seeing none, once again, are there public comments from individuals who are participating via WebEx? Will the DCA moderator please facilitate the lines for public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Thank you very much. Please do, Mr. Rumbar. Thank you, sir. We're going to now move on to agenda item number 9A, an update on the Attorney General's annual report on accusations prosecuted for Department of Consumer Affairs client agencies, Business and Profession Code Section 312.2, January 1st, 2023. I will ask Carl Sonnier, Senior Assistant Attorney General from the Office of the Attorney General, Department of Justice, to present this agenda item. Are you with us, Ms. Sonnier?
Yes, can you
There you
hear
are.
me?
Welcome back, sir. Go ahead. We have you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the courtesy of allowing me to appear virtually. It was very helpful for my schedule. Again, I'm Carl Sani. I am the Senior Assistant Attorney General of the Licensing Section of the Office of Attorney General. Our section is comprised of over 100 attorneys and paralegals who are responsible for the enforcement actions on behalf of the Dental Board and about 24 other agencies, both within and outside the Department of Consumer Affairs. Our office and section appear before the Office of Administrative Hearings most frequently, but we also appear in superior courts, courts of appeal. We appeared in the Supreme Court a couple of years ago, as well as in federal courts. Next slide, if you've got my slides teed up there. You have the slides? The PowerPoint.
Yes, we have the PowerPoint loaded. I'll grab yes, thank you, Wilbert. And yes, perfect.
Great, thank you. So first, in this presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about the background of this report, the data collection process, briefly mention other agencies, and then delve right into the data specific to the Dental Board. Next slide. So the origin of this report, that is the 312.2 report, came out of a statute that was passed back in 2015, the purpose of which was to provide to the legislature, the governor's office, as well as the Department of Consumer Affairs, data with respect to accusations which the Attorney General prosecutes on behalf of the Department of Consumer Affairs agencies. The first annual report came out in 2018, and we're now in this report at the 6th annual report. There are 36 agencies that are included in the report. The majority are within the ambit of the licensing section of the Attorney General's office, and then there is a balance of several healthcare related entities that are under the auspices of the Health Quality Enforcement section. Next slide. Now, the data that is being presented is obtained through the case management software system that the Attorney General's office uses. It's called ProLaw. It's a widely used commercial program. In licensing and in health quality enforcement, there are about 200 users. And what that means is that for every case that we handle, it is tracked in that system and is available to monitor, for example, when a referral comes in, when a pleading is filed, when the hearing occurs, and when the final decision is received, among other data. And then we also have our paralegals, over 20 of them, annually validate all the data that is in the ProLaw system in order to ensure that each case has been properly marked, that each date of an action, such as the filing date or the date of the final decision or the hearing dates, are all properly documented and validated for each of the cases that we handle, which is a few thousand cases for the Department of Consumer Affairs. Next slide. So going right on to the dental board, this matter shows the data specific to the dental board for this fiscal year, this past fiscal year that is reported, which is 21-22, and for the prior fiscal year. So just by way of explanation, these reports cover fiscal years, but the report takes about 6 months to prepare, to validate, and publish. And so the reports are dated January 1 of the year following the fiscal year. So the most current information is for 21-22. And what that shows is that the accusations referred to our office from the dental board numbered 115, which is essentially a static number from the prior fiscal year. And the matters rejected, the same. Matters get rejected for a variety of reasons. They can be as frankly, as common as a licensee who has passed away. Next slide. This slide provides the data that the legislature has asked for where further investigation is requested and received. So what that means is after we receive a file from the dental board, we will review it carefully, and occasionally there will be some additional information that we seek. In that case, we make a request for further investigation of the dental board, and then that information is later conveyed back to our office. And I will say that here, again, these numbers, even though they're talked about a 13% increase or a 67% increase, are really low in comparison to the volume of matters that are being sent to our office. So I consider, in my opinion, these numbers to not be materially changed. Next slide. And this shows the number of accusations which we actually filed during the fiscal year. And here we show a increase of 12%, 109 over 97. So that's about a 10% increase, 12%. And lawyers like work, and obviously we like to see those numbers, but really this is just a function of the dental board's actions in investigating complaints. And it is a function of the good work that the dental board staff and its investigative personnel are conducting. Next slide. In this case, we have the number of accusations withdrawn as well as the number of accusations adjudicated. And these are kind of interesting numbers. Accusations withdrawn, again, don't communicate to me much information because an accusation can be withdrawn for many reasons. Sometimes after receiving further information, and the agency may determine that it is in the interest of justice to withdraw an accusation. Sometimes accusations are withdrawn and citations are issued. And again, they can be withdrawn, and including for the purpose of recognizing that a death of a licensee has occurred, and therefore there is no further reason to have an accusation pending. Accusation matters adjudicated, this is a pretty substantial increase. I would like to take credit for the ability to get 50% increase in adjudications, but candidly, the process of getting this type of improvement is a reflection of the dental board staff, certainly our office and deputies, but also of the Office of Administrative Hearings. So there's many components that go into making these numbers vary from year to year, but this is certainly a number that I like to see. Next slide. Now, this is on average days, and what that means is our data looks at when an accusation matter is received by our office and the number of days it takes for the accusation to actually be filed. And what filed means is that is the date when the executive officer typically signs the accusation, and the moment that the accusation is signed, it's considered to be filed. And so here we see that there's been a change, a 30% decrease in the number of days it takes on average for the accusations which we filed to be prepared once we have received the case from the agency. Again, while that is positive news from my perspective, there are a lot of factors that go into making that those numbers improve, including the excellent work by the dental board's staff in providing all the documentation that we need in order to file an accusation. And so I would want to acknowledge the good work that the dental board staff does. It makes, when they make our job easier, it makes it easier for us to prepare their pleadings. Accusations filed after further investigation, well, you can see that there is a marginal increase. Actually, it's almost statistically the same in the number of days it takes after further investigation is received. But I would note again that the quality of accusation referrals is really suggested by the first category of data and the good work again of the dental board staff. Next slide. This measures the time period between when an accusation is filed, that is signed by the executive officer, to the date when it is settled. And again, we see a significant improvement, about a 9% improvement, which is again well within kind of what we hope to do. So internally, our office, we like to see matters resolved within a year, and this is well within a year. The next line about accusations to default, slight increase. What that reflects is the fact that an accusation, once it's filed, it is served upon the licensee. If the licensee does not respond within a set period of time provided by statute, which is typically 15 days and perhaps time for service of process, then their default can be taken. And so slight increase in the number of days there, but the key issue is look at the number of matters that are involved here. There were 7 matters involved in 2021, 21 matters involved in 21-22. Next slide. This is, again, a piece of information that shows improvement, again, and in each of the various categories from the time the accusation is filed to the time when the hearing requested was significantly reduced, much better than what our targets are for these metrics. The number of days between when the hearing date received and the hearing is commenced was also reduced. I would say, and I would like to just give credit where it's due for the second category of hearing date received to hearing commenced. I would acknowledge that the Office of Administrative Hearings has worked hard to get judges available to hear matters. And when that happens, you can see some significant improvement in sort of the throughput of our cases. So hats off to them and the good work that they have been doing. What you also see here is the total period of time it took for matters to be resolved. If you look at these two metrics that are categories of metrics that we've been looking at, we are resolving the cases in this past fiscal year by down to 236 days, which is very pleasing, I would say, if you were to look at all the data over the years. Those are very good numbers that we believe shows our aggressive and timely prosecution of matters. But again, many people go to make those type of numbers possible, including the dental board staff, the Office of Administrative Hearings, and certainly the deputies who are working on these cases. One of the points, let's go to the next slide. This is sort of the conclusions to be derived here. We have, over the past few years that I've given this presentation, we ourselves, as the licensing section, look at these metrics very carefully, trying to find what we can do to improve them. And as you've seen by these slides, we have been working to improve them. And again, that's a good function of the work that the dental board staff is doing to make our job easier. The goal to get all of these cases for the Department of Consumer Affairs resolved within 18 months is a challenge. So as the Attorney General Office takes its component and reduces those timeframes, it makes the job much easier. I think I saw flipped through the prior presentation many of the pages of the other agencies that we work for and that the Health Quality Enforcement section works for. And the cautionary note that I would always give to a reader of this report is agencies vary. You cannot look at one agency and directly compare it to another agency as far as its percentages, its days. They vary, and they vary for very good reasons because of the different types of licenses and matters that are involved. And so I think for perhaps that reason, the legislature doesn't have us give cumulative information for all the agencies. It asks for the data specific to each agency, which I hope would be what the dental board and the board members here all focus on, and they can see the progress that's being made. And the final comment to make is there is also always a tension between speed and due process. So it's not always a question of seeing whether we can just reduce 236 days down to 180 days, then to 90 days, because there is in every case a key component of due process, which is an opportunity for the licensee to present its evidence, to analyze discovery, to potentially call its own expert witnesses. And those are the due process rights that every licensee in California is entitled to. And therefore, that is a variable that we just need to acknowledge is an important component when looking at all this measured data. I want to thank you again for your time. I want to thank you for the invitation to appear before you and share the good work that the dental board is doing. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to address them briefly. And if not, this concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Sonny. Before we open up for questions, Dr. Montez wanted to make a few comments.
Thank you for the presentation, and I would just like to really reinforce what I heard very clearly in this presentation, and that is that there is a lot of variability in how this process unfolds. There are some factors under our control and some factors that are not, but it takes all of us working together to ensure that things are done correctly. And I know sometimes the public gets very frustrated at maybe the dental board or other regulatory agencies because things are not happening quickly enough. But as you can hear from this, there, again, are a lot of factors that impact the process. I think overall it's very positive. And I just want to, again, compliment Carl. Your staff is fabulous with working with me. I'm new in this position. Enforcement is new to me. They contact me. They brief me. They provide me with the support. I work closely with our discipline coordination unit and Mr. Alvarez, our enforcement chief. And so, again, I think the collaboration is really helping to move things forward. So thank you, Carl. Your team is doing an excellent job.
Encouraging. Thank you. Is there any board member discussion? I see none. Is there any in-person comment from the public? Likewise, I see none. None. Is there any public comment from individuals who are participating via WebEx? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and submit it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Please do. Thank you,
Okay.
Ms. Sonnet. We'll keep up the good work. It's all good. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to agenda item number 9B, which is the enforcement review of statistics and trends. Mr. Alvarez is working his way to the microphone to give us this report. Is that on?
There it goes.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, board members. Carlos Alvarez, Enforcement Chief. I will be presenting agenda item number 9B, Enforcement Review and Statistics and Trends. The time frame that we gather statistics is for October 1st and December 31st of 2022. And we gather statistics from our Complaint and Compliance Unit, our Investigative Analyst Unit, our sworn investigators here in Sacramento, our non-sworn and sworn investigators in the Orange office, our Discipline Coordination Unit, and inspectors. Does anybody have any questions regarding our statistics?
Any board member questions? I see none. Let's see if there's any public comment from people who are in the room. I see none again. And DCA moderator, if you'll facilitate the microphones for those who are seeing it through WebEx, we'd appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Thank you. Please do that. Thank you. There's a comment from Dr. Montez. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to talk a lot at this meeting. So it's a lot of information, graphs and figures, but I think the point here is to show that we are making headway on cases. We're processing them. I meet with Carlos every other week and Owen, and we go over stats and, again, reassuring you that we are closing cases and as appropriate, whether it is non-jurisdictional, whether it goes to investigation, consultant, and so forth. We have been asked by Dr. Felsenfeld to give an overview on the enforcement process, so that will come up at a future board meeting. But again, I just want to reinforce that we are moving in a positive direction. Carlos has been great with triaging cases, looking at statute of limitations, and again, we have one investigator opening, but that individual is in background. We just hired an Orange County sworn investigator. Again, she came from a local police department, so we're very excited because she has that law enforcement background. So Orange technically is fully staffed, although we do have one special investigator that will be starting in March to actually supervise our investigative analysis unit. So she will be moving up here, which will then give us an opening in Orange County. But you will get to meet her at our May board meeting. So again, thank you, Mr. Alvarez, Carlos, doing a great job.
Thank you. We're now going to move on to item 10A, if I'm in the right place on my agenda. I believe I am. And that's going to be it's Dr. Montez again, yes. The dentistry law and ethics examination and what we're doing with that. Dr. Montez, keep going. You're doing great.
Thank you. So Tracy Montez, again, executive officer. It was brought to my attention that we had some potential barriers with some of our students down in Mexico that were having challenges with coming back into California to take the dentistry law and ethics exam. So we are pursuing a contract with PSI to have some opportunities for those students to take the exam in Mexico. the Department of Consumer Affairs, as you are aware, has a master service contract for PSI. So we're going to build off of that and provide some opportunities for those students to take that exam and facilitate the ability to come back into California. As we do that, we will look at other options for our Moldova students as well, if things are able to go smoothly with the contract and this process. So again, just want to reassure everyone that we do listen to inquiries that come to our attention with regard to reducing barriers to licensure. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Anybody from the board have anything they want to ask Dr. Montez on this area, in this area? I see none. Any in-person public comments?
I have a question.
What's that, please?
I have a question.
Oh, Dr. Molina, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So right now, they have to come in person to take the law and ethics?
They have to come back into California. We have computer-based testing sites through the contract that the dental board currently has. So the master contract that DCA has that splits off to the various boards is only for California sites. And so we actually have to do an additional type of contract to have sites in Mexico. So there are, like, I think 15 sites or so throughout California that they can call up, schedule an exam. Most, it happens that there's not a problem, but we have had some individuals that have not been able to come back into California for various reasons that have reached out.
So it cannot be online, it cannot be...
It is online, but it's at a secure facility. So they go to a location where it is secure, given online.
I see.
Yes, because it's a high-stakes exam, we currently support having it in a particular secure site. And so that's the way it would be in Mexico. PSI has contracts for facilities at 3 or 4 different sites in Mexico that the students would then go and take it there.
Okay with that, Dr. Loren.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Dr. Montes, for following up on that. But we might want to look into, yes, as CODA approves more international schools, we're going to have to do something about that too. So hopefully we can figure something out for that. Thank you.
Yes, and I will reassure you, PSI has sites internationally, so lots of opportunity. Thank you.
Any other board comments? Or, once again, anybody from the public who are seated here want to comment on this at all? Thank you, and I don't think we've opened up the public comments from the people on WebEx as yet, and will the moderator please facilitate comments from those on WebEx?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand. We're displaying instructions, and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
All right, thank you. Please do. We are now on agenda item 11A, review of dental licensure and permit statistics. Ms. Regali is working her way north, south, east, or west, coming to sit down and talk with us about that. Please, Ms. Regali.
Thank you, Dr. Felsenfeld, and good afternoon, board members. My name is Paige Regali. I am the Chief of Dental Programs and Customer Support at the board. Today I'll be presenting agenda item 11A, which begins on page 103 of your meeting materials. This memo is an overview of the dental license application statistics, the dental law and ethics written examination statistics, and the dental license and permit statistics. It also provides an overview of current and inactive, and delinquent and canceled licenses. I also wanted to point out that there were no applications received or approved for portfolio as of December 31st, 2022. On page 111 of your meeting materials, it indicates that the last occupational analysis was done by the Office of Professional Examination Services in 2018, and the target date for the next occupational analysis will be in 2025. Moving on to page 115 of your meeting materials, the table provides statistics on dental license and permit statuses by fiscal year. They also continue to show current and active dental licenses by county and the population per license from fiscal year 2021 through December 31st of 2022. Yuba County has the highest population per dentist, and Sierra and Alpine counties have the lowest population per dentist. As an additional comment and note, at a previous meeting, one of the members inquired about data pertaining to the number of active licensees per county. We did look into it, and at this time, we were unable to provide statistics on that information, as there's not a report that pulls all of that at this time. There's no action requested on this agenda item, and I am available for questions.
Thank you. Any board member comments or questions for Ms. Regali? I see none. Are there any in-person comments on this report? I see none again. Will the DCA moderator please facilitate public comments for those on WebEx?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public who would like to make a comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions, and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Please close it. Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Thakur.
The question is that the dentists per county, are those actively practicing dentists or?
It's just, that list is just a list we pull. We get the information of the population from a separate website, and then the active per county or licensees per county is just a list of total licensees with an address of record within that specific county.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Regali, I want to, on a personal basis, I'd like to add that we are well caught up on the backlog that has been so problematic in the past. Thank you to your staff for doing a job to make us proud.
Thank you so much.
All right, item number 12A is the diversion program report and statistics. Mr. Dudley, you're still here. Owen Dudley will be coming down. He is the Chief of Regulatory Compliance and Discipline to present this agenda item. Mr. Dudley, no action is necessary, but we'd like to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Dr. Felsenfeld. Good afternoon, board members. I am Owen Dudley, Chief of Regulatory Compliance and Discipline, and I am here to present Agenda Item 12A, Diversion Program Report and Statistics. This memo provides the statistics for the quarter ending December 31st, 2022. The statistics reflect the participant activity within the diversion program. There were 9 participants in the program. 2 of the participants were terminated. 1 applicant was clinically inappropriate, and 1 participant was non-compliant. Of the 7 continuing participants, there are 3 self-referrals and 4 probation referrals. The next diversion meeting is scheduled for April 5th, 2023. Questions you might have?
Well, I will have one. You say that 2 participants had been terminated from the program.
Yes.
On a simplistic basis, what happens to them if they're not in a program that they need to be in? Is that going to go to the next level of revocation of the probation and things like that? Is that where that goes?
That's an excellent question, Dr. Felsenfeld. These terminations happened before my tenure began with the board, so I'm not actually sure exactly what happened.
Alvarez might know, too, when you get him back up here. Okay, that's important for us to understand the process, that if you're on probation and you don't follow the rules, what happens? And we see that. Okay, thank you, though. Thank you, Mr. Dudley, sorry. All right, we are now, I believe, seeing Mr. Alvarez talk about cures. Is that correct? Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't ask for a comment from the people who are here. No board member comment. People who are sitting here, any comment from you guys? Nothing. How about the people who are doing this? I'm sorry, Ms. Welch.
I just wanted to note it's possible that the 2 people were self-referrals because the diversion program includes people who self-refer into the program. It doesn't always mean that they're probationers.
Okay.
So there's a possibility that they were just self-referred and were terminated.
Good point. Thank you very much. Kind of knew that. Okay. Any comment from people here? No, we're up to the WebEx people. Are there any comments from people who are on WebEx with us? Will the moderator please facilitate their comment now?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please do.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Dudley. We'll let you go now.
Thank you.
All right, we're on item number 12B, we're going to continue on. I think we'll be able to get through our agenda without a break and finish relatively early, so bear with us on that. Mr. Alvarez, welcome back. You're going to talk a little bit about the CURES, or the Controlled Substance Utilization Review and Evaluation System report.
Thank you. So I'll be reporting agenda item number 12B, Controlled Substance Utilization Review and Evaluation System report for CURES. As you know, we get these statistics and data from the Department of Justice. They gather all the data, and they present that to the Department of Consumer Affairs, and then we present it here at the board meeting for CURES. Does anybody have any questions with our CURES statistics?
I have a question about CURES, since I use it from time to time in what I do. Does CURES have data on people who are not following up, or does CURES have data on what happens when you go to CURES and you find out that this guy's a drug-seeking person? Do they have reports that talk about the effectiveness of what it's doing and that? Do you see that at all? Because I certainly don't.
Well, no, we're able to obtain CURES reports. So if part of the investigation, we're able to run the license number, we're able to obtain the CURES report, and that would tell us what the physician is prescribing. Okay. And so that tells us the patient names for every patient that they have, the type of schedules that they're scheduling, the amounts, and that would raises the red flags, is that if they're excessive prescribing. And that, so we investigate those. But as far as notifications from the Department of Justice, as far as CURES, usually we'll find out through a patient complaint.
Board member discussion on this. Board member comments. Dr. Chan, on the anesthesia committee now, right? Go ahead, sir.
Good morning. I had a conversation with Carlos about taking the required opioid continuing ed, where CURES is part of this. And first of all, we have to compliment the providers of this course. Even though Carlos has taken us through part of the reasoning why we're going through this, the course was excellent. It gave us context, it gave us reasons, it gave us scope of why we're doing this. And now I understand more after seeing it. So it does have to compliment the board prior to when I got on here, why we're going through this. And then Carlos, for your work on doing this. One of the questions that did come up with CURES is CURES accessible to those that are not registered in CURES as licensees? And why would that happen?
So now, if they're not prescribing, they're still able to go into CURES now. So DDSs who are not prescribing can still go on the CURES and still make a search of what is being prescribed. Or like Dr. Felsenfeld said, if you have these patient seekers who are just shopping around, they could actually go on to CURES and get data.
Okay. Any other board comments on Mr. Alvarez's report? Seeing none. Any in-person comments on the report? I see none again. And for the people on WebEx, will the moderator please facilitate their comments?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or you may simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Please do. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Alvarez. We're good for now.
Would you like, would you like to me answer the question regarding diversion in case of probation, or you were satisfied?
I think I'm okay. I have a general sense of it, and I was asking the question so that we could all understand where that might go. Yes. And then Ms. Welch's comment was, of course, very appropriate, and we don't ever, at least I don't think of the fact that some people can get into the programs by self-evaluation, and that's an excellent thing. We don't see that too often, unfortunately, but that's a good thing, I believe. So,
yeah, and
that's fine.
And our investigators as well, when we're working on investigations and we're dealing with substance abuse, alcohol abuse, we do give them pamphlets to diversion as well.
Okay, good. Thank you. We're going to go to item 13A, general anesthesia and sedation permits, inspections, and evaluation statistics. Ms. Olney's come up to the table already, so please give your report. And it's an amended item. I think it's there's an amended sheet in your packet.
Yes, it is. And thank you, Dr. Felsenfeld, and good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Jessica Olney, Anesthesia Unit Manager, and I'll be presenting Agenda Item 13A, which begins on page 126 of your meeting materials. This memo provides a statistical overview of board-administered on-site inspections and evaluations for general anesthesia, medical general anesthesia, and conscious sedation permits. You should have received an amended memo with corrected charts showing the general anesthesia evaluations completed for fiscal year 2021-2022, which is page 130 of the meeting materials. Beginning on page 127, this memo provides tables and charts that show the results of on-site inspections and evaluations for the 4 previous fiscal years and through the second quarter of fiscal year 2022-2023. The results are separated by permit type and include data for the current evaluator pool, which is separated by Northern and Southern California regions. For background, Senate Bill 501 made changes to the anesthesia and sedation permits issued by the board. Specifically, SB 501 repealed Business and Professions Code 1647 through 1647.95 as of January 1st, 2022, which eliminated the conscious sedation permit and replaced it with the new moderate sedation permit. To implement SB 501, the board promulgated a rulemaking which became effective on August 16, 2022. Among other things, the rulemaking amended California Code of Regulations, Section 1043.2, subsection B, to remove and replace the mention of conscious sedation permit with the new moderate sedation permit. In implementing the new regulations, the board can no longer conduct on-site inspections and evaluations for conscious sedation permit holders, and as of September 2022, board staff stopped scheduling and performing on-site inspections and evaluations of conscious sedation permit holders. A permit holder who was issued a permit before January 1st of 2022 may follow the terms of that existing permit until it expires, even if they were due to complete an on-site inspection and evaluation. As the CS permits expire, board staff will continue to monitor and investigate grievances related to permitting for the administration of conscious sedation. The first moderate sedation permit was issued in September 15, 2022, and the on-site inspection and evaluation must be conducted within 1 year of issuance. Over the next few months, board staff will contact newly licensed moderate sedation permit holders to schedule and conduct on-site inspections and evaluations. No action is requested on this report because the data is provided informational, and I'm available to answer your questions.
Are there any board member questions for Ms. Olney? Dr. Larin.
Hello, thank you for your report. I just noticed there's a lot of postponed evaluations due to no evaluators being available. About what happens if the license expires waiting, and about how long would you have to wait at the most to have another evaluator available?
The staff is constantly rolling over evaluations when that happens. They'll continue to work on them and work with that permit holder. And I'm sorry, you mentioned the renewal.
If it cancels out while you're waiting, what happens?
Well, the renewal itself is separate from the on-site inspection and evaluation, where renewal is due every 2 years, and the evaluation is scheduled every 5 years. So the permit holder is still able to renew their permit. The board staff will work with the permit holder to go ahead and schedule that evaluation and get it completed, but they're still able to continue to renew. There are instances where a permit holder may not respond to notices or refuse to be evaluated, and in those cases, their permit is canceled.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I might add to that, Ms. Olney, and you're well aware of this, obviously, that this has been a problem that's been going on for a long time. When Dr. Witch was up here and I was back there, we were talking about the very same thing.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we have maybe 2/3 of the time, the evaluators are not available. We are working on that, though. We have some potential legislative changes that might make it a little bit easier to get these things done in the future, and that, over the next couple of years as we go through sunset, will hopefully solve some of this problem, or at least modify it.
And if I can add also, the staff that work on scheduling the on-site inspections, we do actively pester some of our permit holders. You know, I notice you're not an evaluator, you should sign up. We're always looking for...
You need people who actually have the license to do that, though.
Yes.
Okay, it's just a thought. Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Levin, you could probably get a license if you really want to go through the training. All right, let's continue. Is there any board member discussion other than what we've just done on this issue? Seeing none, is there any in-person comments on this? Dr. Witcher, please identify yourself.
Good afternoon, everybody. Dr. Bruce Witcher, CDA. I know you're aware of this issue, so I'll try to be brief, because I know you've had a lot of emails from stakeholders and licensees who are very concerned about their moderate sedation permits. The Dental Association is asking the board to consider amending your protocol for the on-site inspection and evaluation during the transition to moderate sedation permits. We believe that the DBC has the authority to accept previous on-site inspections conducted before January 2021 and ask you to consider honoring inspections provided prior to prior CS permit holders for the length of duration of their evaluation, which is 6 years. Dental providers have recently renewed their moderate sedation permits, are no longer eligible to serve as evaluators because they have not held their permits for 3 years, even though they've had considerable years of experience doing evaluations. This has had a big effect on your pool of moderate sedation evaluators. So you might want to look at that. We also feel the permit application should include a provision that allows you to consider earlier conscious sedation permit credentials, because some of the applicants are having a great deal of difficulty getting the program director or whoever oversaw their training to sign off because the program may no longer be in existence. And so, you know, another issue is the term for a new moderate sedation permit holder excludes a lot of them from participating because they have to undergo an evaluation
30 seconds.
1 year. And you have to hold a permit for 3 years before you can become an evaluator. I know you're aware of these issues, and I know you're working on them, and I really appreciate the fact that you're making a note of grievances and actively working on this, so thank you.
Thank you. Any other in-person comment? Seeing none, will the moderator please facilitate public comment from those on WebEx?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. And I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and submit it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Please do. Thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Olney, I think you're done for now, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, she's doing this one. Sorry. You're also doing 13B. Very important job.
And
Update
13B.
regarding board implementation of Senate Bill SB 501 Glazer, Chapter 929, and statutes of 2018.
And thank you again, Dr. Felsenfeld and members of the board. Again, my name is Jessica Olney, Anesthesia Unit Manager, and I'll be presenting Agenda Item 13B. And my apologies, I know I'm repeating myself, but I just want to clarify for the record. Agenda Item 13B, which begins on page 139 of your meeting materials. This memo updates the board on the implementation of Senate Bill 501, which became effective January 1st of 2022, and made significant changes to the general anesthesia, medical general anesthesia, conscious sedation, and oral conscious sedation for minors permits. SB 501 also created a new moderate sedation permit, pediatric minimal sedation permit, and pediatric endorsements and monitoring requirements when administering moderate sedation, deep sedation, or general anesthesia to a minor patient. To implement these changes, board staff with subject matter experts and legal counsel developed regulatory language which was approved by the board at the November 2021 board meeting. The initial rulemaking file was submitted to the Office of Administrative Law for publication, which initiated a 45-day public comment period on December 31st, 2021. Public comments and requests for a public hearing were received, and a public hearing was held on February 16, 2022. A special meeting was held on March 14, 2022, where the board took action to accept staff recommendations on the comments received, approve the modified text and documents added to the rulemaking file, and directed staff to complete the rulemaking process. On May 2nd, 2022, the rulemaking package was submitted to the Office of Administrative Law, but the package was withdrawn on June 14th to make substantial changes. The board approved modified text on June 8th, 2022, and the rulemaking file of the second modified text was submitted to the Office of Administrative Law on July 21st, 2022. And the regulations were approved on August 16, 2022. On August 23rd, an email announcement was sent to licensees and interested parties, which included links to new web pages for each of the permits. And board staff, received the first application under the new regulations on August 26th of 2022. Page 141 of the meeting materials includes a table showing the total number of anesthesia and sedation permit applications received, the number of deficient applications, the number of approved applications between August 2022 and January 6th of 2023, when the meeting materials were finalized. Additional applications have been received, and as of February 7th, I can provide you with some updated numbers. We have received 12 applications for initial application for general anesthesia permit. 10 of those applications have been approved, 2 are deficient. We have received 15 applications for the application for pediatric endorsement for general anesthesia. 13 of those have been approved, 2 are deficient. The initial application for medical general anesthesia permits, we have received 8 applications. 7 have been approved and 1 is deficient. Applications for pediatric endorsement for medical general anesthesia, we've received 14. 11 have been approved and 3 are deficient. The initial application for moderate sedation, we've received 83 applications to date. 71 have been approved, 12 are deficient. The application for pediatric endorsement for moderate sedation, we have received 2 applications. Those are both deficient. And applications for pediatric minimal sedation, we've received 43. 40 have been approved and 3 are deficient. In addition, board staff and legal counsel have identified 4 areas in current law that would benefit from legislative amendments, and the legislative proposals were presented to and approved by the board during the November 2021, August 2022, and November 2022 board meetings. As board staff continue to work on the implementation of SB 501, additional issues with the sedation and anesthesia permit statutes have been identified. To resolve newly identified statutory issues, staff have drafted legislative proposals to be consolidated with the 4 previously approved legislative proposals. The consolidated legislation and the consolidated legislative proposal will be presented to the board for discussion tomorrow, Friday, February 10th, by Legislative and Regulatory Specialist David Bruggeman as Agenda Item 22. If approved, the consolidated legislative proposal will be submitted to the California State Legislature in the board's Sunset Review Report. No action is requested on this item because the data is provided as informational, and I am available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board? Dr. Chan.
Thank you, Jessica. This has been a long journey. We started this in 2015 or 16 just to get it where we are now. Question, in the numbers of the questions on pediatric endorsement are kind of low, actually, considering the whole numbers that are you seeing any barriers for how to gather that information?
No, I think what the issue and why the number is so much lower than what we anticipated is because we allowed permit holders to renew before January 1 of 2022 to extend their expiration date. This also is going to assist us in being able to spread those requests and those applications coming in out over the next 2 years. So rather than, because we allowed those people to renew early, this gives us more time to implement and accept those applications.
Also, I would like to comment that it's impressive that we are processing through as we are. It's going very well so far.
Yes, I can.
Except for the people who don't complete their applications appropriately, but that's not our problem if you don't send it in right. But we are taking the ones who are not insufficient applicants and doing a good job of getting them out, it sounds like.
Yes, our staff are processing the applications. They come in, they go to the cashier for processing, and staff processes the actual application either the same day we receive it from the cashier unit or the next day. And they reach out directly to the permit holder by email, by phone, and also by mail.
I haven't received mine yet, but we'll keep moving. All right. Any other board member discussion on this topic? Seeing none. Any in-person public comments? Dr. Witcher is coming up.
Dr. Bruce Witcher, just representing myself. If anybody's interested in how the renewals are looking over the next 2 years, Jessica did prepare a document that kind of lines that out that was brought up a couple of meetings ago. And you can go back and see that, where she says exactly how many are going to be applying for each of those 2 years. So you can see we'll be receiving quite a few this year on into next year, and then that's kind of the end of it because they're on a 2-year renewal cycle. So I think that was really helpful to me to see that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other in-person comments? Seeing none, are there public comments from individuals who are participating via WebEx? Will the DCA moderator please facilitate the lines for public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and submit it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Olney, I tried to get you to go home early. You got one more to go. And this is an action item. It's item 13C, a discussion and possible action regarding the appointment of general anesthesia and medical general anesthesia permit evaluators. Please present your comments and questions, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Thank you, Dr. Felsenfeld and members of the board, and I promise this will be quicker. Jessica Olney with the anesthesia unit, and I'll be presenting agenda item 13C, which begins on page 143 of your meeting materials. Beginning on page 146, this memo includes the applications of 6 permit holders to become evaluators for the board's on-site inspection and evaluation program. The board conducts on-site inspections and evaluations of general anesthesia and medical general anesthesia permit applicants and permit holders. The evaluation includes the facility, equipment, personnel, and procedures utilized. The evaluation team consists of 2 or more permit holders acting as subject matter experts who have been approved by the board. The evaluators provide an independent evaluation and make a recommendation to pass or fail in accordance with California Code of Regulations 1043.6. Senate Bill 501 changed the provision that governs the administration of minimal sedation, moderate sedation, deep sedation, and general anesthesia on dental patients. The SB 501 rulemaking, which became operative on August 16th of 2022, amended California Code of Regulations 1043.2 and changed the composition of the evaluation teams who perform the on-site inspection and evaluations. That section now provides that the evaluation team consists of 2 or more persons for the first evaluation, or if the applicant has failed an evaluation. For each subsequent evaluation, only 1 evaluator is required. In addition, the evaluators must meet the criteria which are listed on pages 143 and 144 of the meeting materials. To increase the pool of available evaluators for the on-site inspection and evaluation program, board staff post a continuous recruitment notice on the board's website. This memo includes 5 general anesthesia permit holders and 1 medical general anesthesia permit holder who have applied to become evaluators. Board staff have reviewed the applications and recommend approval of their appointment as evaluators. We ask that the board review and consider staff's recommendations and make a motion to appoint the 6 applicants as evaluators for the on-site inspection and evaluation program, and I am available to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, let's hold on for one moment. I got a little legal thing I'm trying to work out. Stay with us here. All right, we got the problem sort of solved. All right, we have 6 individuals that the staff has said are deemed appropriate to become evaluators. We have to appoint each one separately. So what we're going to do is entertain a nomination for one person, public comments and all that, and a vote on each person. So we can go around and I can actually do the nominations if it's easier, or someone else can do it. I don't have it right in front of me. So who would like to nominate the first person? Dr. Yu. Yes, sir. What's your question?
Among all the applicants, only one...
Microphone, please, Dr. Yu.
Among all the applicants, only one has completed the evaluator calibration training course. I would like to know how important is this course?
This is a course that was previously done in person. We would schedule times in Southern and Northern California to conduct these evaluator trainings. We have had this training on CD, on compact disc, that we provide to the applicants.
Mm-hmm. So will they finish the training course later on?
It's already been provided.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
You're good with that. Dr. Thakur, into the microphone, please.
So, do they have to attest that they watched the CD to certify that they've taken have been calibrated?
We give them a quiz along with it.
Thank you. Any other comments on the general topic that we have of appointing these new individuals as anesthesia evaluators? Seeing none, what we'll try to do to make this, we'll facilitate this as easily as we can. We'll go to nominate one person. We'll second that. We'll see board member discussion, public discussion, and then we'll vote on that. And then we'll just keep moving through them. All right. I'll start off by nominating Dr. Samer Al-Badawi as a GA evaluator. That's my nomination or my motion. Dr. Montez has just seconded. Is someone else going to second that? Dr. Chan has seconded that. Thank you very much. Is there any board discussion about this? Seeing none, is there any public comment on this from those who are in the building? Seeing none, is there any public comment from the WebEx group of individuals? DCA moderator, please facilitate public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public wishes to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Please do. Will the board secretary please take the vote?
Yes, the motion is to appoint Dr. Samer Al-Badawi as evaluator for the on-site inspection and evaluation program.
A GA evaluator. I have to indicate what he's there for.
A.
That's correct. Okay. Go ahead and take the vote.
Chan.
Chan, aye.
Felsenfeld.
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Forge.
Forge, aye.
Forge, aye. Ladin, aye. McKenzie.
McKenzie, yes.
McKenzie, yes. Medina.
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Molina.
Molina, aye.
Molina, aye. Olage.
Olage, yes.
Olage, yes. Pacheco.
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Thakur.
Thakur, aye.
Thakur, aye. And you?
You, aye.
You, aye. Thank you. The motion passed.
Thank you. Who would like to nominate the second person or make a motion to accept it? Dr. Chan?
I'd like to move the acceptance of Karen Anderson Curtin for GA permit as an evaluator for the on-site inspection and evaluation program.
Thank you. Who is that? Ms. Medina has seconded that. Thank you. Is there any board comment? Any in-person public comment? WebEx individuals, can we facilitate comment from the public on WebEx?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Will the board secretary please take the vote?
Yes, the motion is to appoint Dr. Karen Anderson Curtin as evaluator for the on-site inspection and GA evaluation program. We'll call the roll. Is Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Forge? Forge, aye. Forge, aye. Larin, aye. McKenzie?
McKenzie, yes.
McKenzie, yes. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Molina?
Molina, aye.
Molina, aye. Olage?
Olagi, aye.
Aye. Olage, aye. Pacheco?
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Takur?
Takur, aye.
Takur, aye. You?
You, aye.
You, aye. Motion passed.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion that Dr. James Habashi be appointed to be an evaluator in our program for general anesthesia. Is there a second?
You second.
Dr. Yu, thank you. Is there any board member discussion?
So I have a question. Now, he says both GA and conscious sedation cases, but since we now have switched to the moderate sedation, are you going to be training them for moderate sedation, or how is this going to be
Where are you seeing that? I'm sorry. I'm confused as to what you're talking about.
So it says, would you like to evaluate GA cases, CS cases, or both? And then he says both.
So the application itself had not been updated to include the moderate sedation. This is a previous or an older version of the application that was submitted. But at this time, we're only asking that these doctors are approved for the general anesthesia.
Oh, okay. Even though it says both, it's just general.
Right.
Okay.
Right. This was just a previous form that was used. That doesn't have the moderate sedation as an option.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other board comments? And we have the motion and the second. Any in-person public comments on Dr. Habashi? For those on WebEx, are there any WebEx comments? Will the moderator please facilitate WebEx comment for the public?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you. Dr. Larin, please take the vote.
Yes, the motion is to appoint Dr. James Habashi as evaluator for the on-site inspection and GA evaluation program. I will call the roll. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Forge?
Forge, aye.
Forge, aye. Larin, aye. McKenzie?
McKenzie, yes.
McKenzie, yes. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Molina?
Molina, aye.
Molina, aye. Olage?
Olagi, aye.
Olage, aye. Pacheco?
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Takur?
Takur, aye.
Takur, aye. You?
You, aye.
You, aye. The motion passes.
Thank you. We have two more. Who's next?
I'd like to make a motion
Mr. Pacheco.
for Dr. Ha as an evaluator on the on-site inspection of the GA evaluation program.
Thank you. Who seconded that? Dr. Forge. Thank you very much. We have a nomination and a second. Is there any board member discussion? Seeing none, is there any in-person comments? Seeing none, for the WebEx, will the moderator please open up the WebEx so that public can comment if there is any?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Please close it. Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Secretary, would you be kind enough to take the vote?
Hello again, the motion is to appoint Dr. Brian Hugh, as evaluator for the on-site inspection and GA evaluation program. I will call the roll. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, I. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
So I. Forge?
Forge, aye.
Forge, I. Larin, I. McKenzie?
McKenzie, yes.
McKenzie, yes. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, I. Molina?
Molina, aye.
Molina, I. Olage?
Olagi, aye.
Olage, I. Pacheco?
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, I. Thakur?
Thakur, aye.
Thakur, I. You?
You, aye.
You, I. The motion passes.
Thank you. We have Dr. Zachary next. Who is interested?
Offer your motion.
What's that, Dr. Yu?
I motion that George Zachary, to be a GA and conscious sedation evaluator.
Thank you.
Olagi, second.
Dr. Olagi seconds it. Is there any board member? If you have a GA permit, you can go to the lower levels, even with the rules as they are, if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Olney?
Yes, but we are not doing, conscious sedation.
No, I understand that. Well, it was said as conscious sedation, but it's a GA permit that he's asking for. Is that what your question
I
is?
think his application is also confusing because he checks off GA and then circles both.
But again, the application is really out of date according to what we learned earlier.
Yes.
Anyone who gets a general anesthesia permit can go to the moderate sedation or what used to be conscious sedation. So let's not get ourselves confused with that, okay? Am I correct with that, Ms. Olney?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So we have Dr. Zachary, I think, has just been nominated. Any other board discussion on that?
It was you motion and second?
You and Olagi. Okay. Any in-person comment, public comment on that? Will the DCA moderator please facilitate comment from the public on WebEx?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, close it, please.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Secretary, if you'll once again.
Hello,
Vote.
the motion is to appoint Dr. George Zachary as, evaluator for the on-site inspection and GA evaluation program, and I'll call the roll. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, I. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, I. Forge?
Forge, aye.
Forge, I. Larin, I. McKenzie?
McKenzie, yes.
McKenzie, yes. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, I. Molina?
Molina, aye.
Molina, I. Olage?
Olagi, aye.
Olage, I. Pacheco?
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, I. Thakur?
Thakur, aye.
I. Thakur, you?
You, aye.
You, I. Motion passed.
Thank you. I'll do the last one just to facilitate things. I would like to move that Dr. Richard L. Katz, who is a physician MGA type of person, be appointed as an evaluator for GA and MGA, MGA, I guess, position. I'll make that motion.
I second.
Well, I heard two people, Mackenzie, and we'll give Mackenzie something here. Thank you. Mackenzie seconded. Any board member discussion for Dr. Katz? Seeing none. Any in-person comment? Seeing none. Will the moderator please open it up for WebEx participants to make public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Will the secretary please take the roll?
Okay, last one, let's see. The motion is to appoint Dr. Rich Katz as evaluator for the on-site inspection and GA evaluation program. I will call the roll. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, I. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, I. Forge?
Forge, aye.
Forge, I. Larin, I. McKenzie?
McKenzie, yes.
McKenzie, yes. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, I. Molina?
Molina, aye.
Molina, I. Olage?
Olagi, aye.
Olage, I. Pacheco?
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, I. Thakur?
Thakur, aye.
Thakur, I. You?
You, aye.
You, I. Motion passes.
Thank you, Dr. Secretary. This will conclude Ms. Olney's participation, if I'm not mistaken. I want to suggest to the board and to anyone listening that, yes, this took a long time, but we are dealing with individuals' rights to do things for the board, and I think it's appropriate we do that. Moreover, this is a wonderful problem to have. We have 6 people who want to do what we were just saying we need more of, so it's all excellent. All right, let us... Nothing to say, Doctor. We're done, Dr. Witcher.
Okay, I guess I'm too late.
Yes, you are. Sit down. All right. Oh, I've wanted to say that for so long. All right. Now, yes, sir, Dr. Chan.
I'd just like to add a comment that, first of all, I want to thank the 6 that have stepped forward and those that are evaluators now for their commitment and time to protect the public. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. That's very true. Maybe Dr. Witcher was going to say that too, but that's okay. The chair has the right to modify the agenda, and we're going to make one little change to facilitate tomorrow's meeting, and since we are smoking relative to how much we've been working, to do item 24 for Mr. Bruggeman to come up and talk about some of the things in that item, and there's no action necessary, just to get the report that he has, and then after that, we're going to take a break. Those who can't stay will leave, and we'll do our closed session. Item 24 is on the agenda for tomorrow.
President Felsenfeld, board members, I'm David Bruggeman, a regulatory and legislative specialist with the board. As President Felsenfeld indicated, I'm going to discuss agenda item 24. This is informational only. The board does not have the board staff does not have any requests of the board to take action at this time. It's a legislative report. The legislature recently started another 2-year session. We're relatively early in that session. If you take a look at the calendars for both the Assembly and for the Senate, and those start on page 209 of your materials, there are 2 relevant deadlines to highlight. One of them is next Friday, February 17th. This is the last day that bills can be introduced for consideration in this legislative year. And so there's been a lot of activity over the last few weeks in terms of new bills being introduced. And depending on various circumstances, some of these bills are being introduced to be amended later. And one of those is a bill that was referenced during the Dental Assisting Council meeting by representatives from CDA. We're talking about Assembly Bill 481. It has been introduced, but as it is currently written, it simply is making a non-substantive change to Section 1740 of the Dental Practice Act. So I cannot even tell you what the official language is that would be added that the board may wish to address and consider. Presumably by the time the May meeting comes around, we would be in a position to hold a more substantive brief and then consider the bill and take appropriate action at that time. And in terms of the over 900 bills that have been introduced so far in this session, I've only found a handful that I felt worth tracking. We've noted one in the agenda that we are tracking. There are a few others that were introduced just this week. Besides the AB 481 that I mentioned, there is a resolution currently going through the Assembly to designate February as Dental Health Month. Once that's been approved, I'll certainly make the appropriate notation for the board, but that is still within process at this time. The other relevant deadline is that in late April, it's the last day for policy committees to consider and approve bills that are originating in that specific house. So the Assembly Business and Professions Committee for bills relevant to the Dental Board would need to consider any legislation introduced in the Assembly by late April. So definitely our prime window for the board to make any actions with respect to legislation is going to be at the May meeting. There may be subsequent opportunities, but the May meeting is the prime one during the year. And at this point, I've basically covered the calendars and the highlights of the memo that is agenda item 24B in your materials. At this point, I'll simply stop here and open it up for any questions or comment from the board and then from the public.
Okay, are there any board comments on any of this? I have a semi-question comment. This 481 that was introduced, is that considered a spot bill, a placeholder, something that's going to be reworked as time goes on?
That would be the technical term for it. I'm more used to seeing spot bills that simply express the intent of the legislature, but
Okay.
this one, if nothing changes, would make a non-substantive change to the Practice Act.
Still more to come is what
Yes,
you're saying.
indeed.
Okay. Any other board comments? Seeing none, is there any public comment on Mr. Bruggeman's report? Dr. Montez wants to make a comment before I go to the WebEx people. Go ahead.
I just want to clarify that this is 24A and B, so if you have any comment, it's both items. Within 24, both pieces of item 24.
Okay. Any public comment on that? I see none from the board. All right. How about WebEx? Would the moderator please facilitate public comment from those on WebEx?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 24A and B, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and submit it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions, and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Please do, and thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Bruggeman. Thank you all. This concludes the open session portion of this meeting on Thursday, February 9th, 2023. Open session is recessed until Friday, February 10th, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. The board will now convene in closed session after about a 15-minute break, which we will take, but you are not allowed back in, and we will come back in 15 minutes. And at the conclusion of closed session will be adjourned, and there'll be a report tomorrow. Good day, everyone.